The Facts by me, Clarissa Alphonse. Two of my favorite texts this semester were The Black Arts Movement. In a 1968 essay, The Black Arts Movement by Larry Neal proclaimed that Black arts was the aesthetic and spiritual sister of Black Power concept. As a political phrase, Black Power had earlier been used by Richard Wright, described in the mid-1950s emergence of independent African nations. In the 1960s, use of the term originated in 1966 with Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Civil Rights Workers Stokely Carmichael and Willie Ricks. Quickly adopted in the North, Black Power was associated with militant advocacy of armed self-defense, separation from racist American domination, and pride in the assertion of the goodness and beauty of Blackness. My second one was A Double Standard by Frances Ellen Watkins. The poem documents and protests the fact that upper-class men seduce servant girls who are then fired. Then these girls' lives are quite possible ruined as a result. They spiral down into poverty and quiet possible prostitution. And the men are not punished in the least. They are still accepted to the best society, and they can marry an upper-class girl. That was a great poem. I thank Dr. Benson for introducing me to that poem. These are a couple pictures of Black Power and slavery. I thought that would be really nice to just incorporate those into my PowerPoint here. Now, these are some key considerations of Black authors, scholars, and artists. Black and white abolitionists in the first half of the 19th century waged a biracial assault against slavery. Their efforts proved to be extremely effective. Abolitionists focused attention on slavery and made it difficult to ignore. The heightened the rift that had threatened to destroy the unity of the nation even as early as the Constitutional Convention. Although some Quakers were slaveholders, members that religious group were among the earliest to protest the African slave trade, the perpetual bondage of its captives, and the practice of separating enslaved family members by sale to different masters. In the 19th century, I apologize. In the 19th century, many abolitionists united to form numerous anti-slavery societies. These groups sent petitions with thousands of signatures to Congress, held abolition meetings and conferences, boycotted products that made with slave labor, printed mountains of literature, and gave innumerable speeches for their case. Individual abolitionists sometimes advocated violent means for bringing slavery to an end. Although Black and white abolitionists often worked together by the 1840s, they differed in philosophy and method. While many white abolitionists focused on slavery, Black Americans tended to couple anti-slavery activities with demands for racial equality and justice. A few little gestures here. These are some of the Black authors that we read about in this semester in my African American Lit. I have W.E.B. Du Bois, I have Maya Angelou, Miss Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, so on and so on. These are great authors. My self-perceptions from this semester. I fully understand the Black Power movement and what it stood for. I really didn't quite understand what really was the Black Power movement because at my old college, I should say, before I came here to Texas Southern, they never really talked about the Black Power movement. They mentioned it, but they never got in depth to it. The second one is I understand more about the Africana people. I never knew what Africana was until I came to Texas Southern and met Dr. Benson. I learned about the Mau Mau's, which was with Mos Def, if I'm not mistaken. That whole group was something phenomenal. I really enjoyed learning about that. I learned new poems like A Double Standard. I learned let me see, we did Francis Scott Key. We did not Francis Scott Key, I'm sorry. We did a lot of different poems this semester. Claude McKay was one of the heavier authors we studied with the poems. I read more Black authors this semester than I've ever done. I really don't like to read, so when we started reading about these Black authors and things, once we got into depth with the poems and with the stories, it was really something amazing. Entering this course, I never knew how important our history really was until I met Dr. Benson. And that's really goes back to number one. Like, I never really sat down to take a look into our history, just African American literature at that. Okay. And using what I learned this semester. All the information that I have learned while in this course, I will teach others and set an example for all the people who came before me. Learning about my culture has been a true blessing to me. It opened my eyes to all of the talent that these slaves had. Most of the people I learned about started off as slaves, and then they went on to become some of the most important people today in history. I truly thank everyone who has come before me. If it weren't for them, I'm not sure where I would be. And that's all my presentation.